On Christmas night, 1848, while the plantation masters celebrated with feasts and laughter, an enslaved man named Nathaniel made his choice. For 12 long years he had endured chains, lashes, and humiliation. But that night, beneath the cold Alabama stars, he turned from victim to avenger. His master would not live to see another sunrise. Nathaniel's story begins in the red-soiled fields of Alabama, a place where cotton grew tall and men were broken to harvest it. He was young when he was first chained, strong of body, quiet of voice. His master saw him not as a man, but as property and other tool for the empire of cotton. The plantation itself was vast, stretching beyond the sight, with cabins for the enslaved pressed into the dirt and the big house rising proud on a hill. Every morning, bells cut through the silence, calling men and women into the fields before dawn. Overseers on horseback shouted, their whips slicing the air, the sound echoing like gunfire. For Nathaniel, life was a cycle of suffering. 12 years, 12 harvests, 12 winters spent in rags. His back bore scars that would never heal. He had seen friends sold away, mothers wailing as their children were ripped from their arms. He had heard the cries of women dragged into the shadows of the big house. And still, the years went on. But cruelty plants seeds. For some, despair grows. For others, anger. In Nathaniel, it was rage that took root, deep and quiet. Each day on the plantation blurred into the next. Nathaniel bent low in the fields, cotton cutting his fingers raw. Overseers rode past, barking quotas. At night, he collapsed on a straw mattress in a cabin packed with others, his stomach aching from hunger, his bones aching from exhaustion. Christmas was the only time of year when the whip sometimes fell silent. The masters celebrated with food, drink, and merriment. Slaves were given small rations of corn whiskey or allowed to visit family on nearby plantations. For the enslaved, Christmas was bittersweet brief moments of joy, shadowed by the knowledge that life would soon return to pain. But for Nathaniel, Christmas became something more. The night he would finally take his revenge. He had spent months, perhaps, years considering it. How easy it would be to fail, to be caught, to die in agony before a crowd. Yet what was his life now but a slow death stretched over years? His mind was made. Nathaniel watched carefully. He studied his master's habits. He knew when he drank too much, when he fell into drunken sleep, when the guards grew lax with their patrols. He spoke little, but he listened. He listened when others whispered of revolts in far-off places. He listened when they spoke of Nat Turner, who had risen in Virginia years earlier. He listened, and he dreamed. In the cabins at night, while others sang spirituals to keep hope alive, Nathaniel stared at the fire. His thoughts burned darker. Christmas Eve arrived. The plantation bustled with preparation. The big house glowed with lantern light. Food roasted, whiskey poured, and laughter spilled into the night air. The enslaved were given scraps and allowed a few hours of their own. They sang, danced, and tried, if only briefly, to forget. But Nathaniel did not forget. He waited. He waited through the night, watching, his fury building like a storm. When Christmas Day came, the master drank heavily. He boasted at the table, laughed too loud, his cheeks flushed with wine. By nightfall, he staggered to his bed, unguarded, vulnerable. The overseers, too, had drunk their share. The plantation was quieter than usual. It was then that Nathaniel moved. The night was cold, the stars sharp above the trees. Nathaniel's footsteps were silent on the dirt path. In his hand, not a weapon of war, but the tool of a slave, a hatchet. Its blade worn but sharp enough. The same tool he had used to split wood for his master's fire would now split the master himself. He slipped into the big house. The air was heavy with the smell of roasted meat and spilled drink. The halls were quiet. He knew where to go. In the master's chamber, the man lay sprawled across his bed, snoring. Nathaniel stood over him, hatchet trembling in his hand. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. He thought of the 12 years of pain. The lash, the chains, the cries of mothers. The hunger in his belly. He thought of freedom he might never see, but freedom his master would never again deny. Then the hatchet fell. The first blow was fast, savage. The second, harder. The master's eyes opened in shock, but it was too late. Blood stained the sheets. The snoring turned to gurgles. Then silence. Nathaniel did not stop until the man who had enslaved him was still forever. Chaos followed. The house erupted with screams. Servants rushed in. Overseers roused from drunken sleep. Guns in their hands. Nathaniel fled into the night, his heart pounding, the hatchet slick with blood. For a brief moment, he was free, not of chains, not of the world that would soon hunt him, but free of his master. But freedom won by violence is fragile. The alarm spread quickly. Riders galloped through the night. Dogs were unleashed. Nathaniel's face, his name, his did it, was on every tongue. A slave who had struck down his master on Christmas night! The search was relentless. Every cabin was turned upside down. Every forest scoured. Enslaved men were interrogated. Whipped until their backs bled, desperate to force confessions. Some said Nathaniel fled into the swamps, where water moccasins and alligators lurked. Others whispered he was caught within days, dragged back in chains. What happened next is clouded in silence. Records are scarce deliberately erased, perhaps by a society terrified that the story might inspire others. But what we do know is this. Nathaniel did not live long after that night. Whether he died by the noose, by fire, or by a firing squad, his fate was sealed the moment the hatchet fell. Yet his actus revengicode far beyond his life. The killing of a master by his own slave shook Alabama. For planters across the South, it was a nightmare made flesh. The fear that those they chained might one day rise against them. Laws tightened. Patrols increased. The chains grew heavier, not lighter, but among the enslaved, Nathaniel's story lived on. Passed in whispers, remembered in secret, retold as a symbol of resistance. He had done what so many dreamed of, but dared not attempt. He had taken back his dignity with fire and steel, if only for one night. History, written by the victors, tried to erase him. Textbooks remain silent. Plantation records mention only an incident. But we'll remember him now. Nathaniel, an enslaved man who endured 12 years in chains, and on one fateful Christmas night chose revenge over submission. This was his story. And it is a reminder that slavery was not just a system of labor, it was a system of terror. And terror breeds resistance. Always. This was Nathaniel's story. But many remain untold. If you want to uncover more hidden histories of revolt, survival, and resistance, click on the playlist here. And if you believe these voices from the past deserve to be heard, subscribe to this channel. And join us as we continue to bring the shadows of history into the light.